The house stood alone, dark, imposing. It watched the street with empty windows like the eyes of a predator. No one dared to approach. Local legend whispered of a darkness within, a chilling presence that sent shivers down your spine. It was a place of fear. One man, John, dared to defy the stories. An author seeking inspiration, he saw opportunity in the fear. He dismissed the whispers as superstition, but he would soon learn the truth. The house held a dark secret, a terrifying truth. John stepped inside, the heavy oak door groaning shut behind him. The air grew cold, thick with the stench of decay and the weight of unseen eyes. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight filtering through grimy windows. Each creak of the floorboards sent a shiver down his spine. He felt a presence, something watching him from the shadows, an unsettling feeling like an ice-cold hand gripping his heart. Days turned into nights. John explored the house, documenting its every creak and groan. He felt a growing unease. Shadows seemed to move in the corner of his eye. Whispers echoed from empty rooms. He tried to ignore it, to rationalize it away, but the fear was a seed, taking root in his mind. One night, as John stared into an old tarnished mirror, he saw it. A fleeting glimpse, a shadow behind him, a tall, gaunt figure with eyes that burned like hot coals. He whirled around. Nothing. Was it his imagination or something more sinister? Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued him. Visions of the shadow whispering his name, cold, dead eyes boring into his soul. He woke each morning drenched in sweat, his heart pounding in his chest. Fear was his constant companion. John started hearing it. A voice, soft at first, like whispers on the wind, then clearer. A raspy, guttural voice calling his name. It seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The house was alive, and it was speaking to him. He tried to ignore it, to focus on his writing. But the voice grew stronger, more insistent. It whispered of things dark and terrible, secrets buried deep within the house's history, secrets John was not meant to know. One night, drawn by an unseen force, John found himself in the attic. Cobwebs hung thick in the air and dust covered every surface. He felt a presence here, stronger than ever before. It was cold, suffocating, evil. He saw it then. Scratched into the dusty floorboards, a name. The name the voice had been whispering. His name. John stumbled back, his blood turning to ice. The house knew him. It had been waiting for him. The whispers intensified, becoming a chorus of voices, each one filled with malice and despair. They spoke of a tragedy, a betrayal, a love twisted into something dark and vengeful. John felt a cold dread seep into his bones. He was caught in a web of something ancient and evil. He tried to flee, to escape the house's clutches. But the doors slammed shut before him. Windows refused to budge. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own nightmare. The house was toying with him, savouring his terror. The shadows grew longer, deeper. Twisted shapes writhed in the corners of his vision, their eyes glowing with an infernal light. He could feel their cold, dead breath on his skin. The boundary between reality and nightmare blurred. He was losing his grip. He had to do something. He had to fight back. But how do you fight a darkness that consumes you from within? Section 5. The Seance. John remembered an old book he'd found, a book on the occult. It spoke of contacting the dead, of facing the darkness. It was a desperate gamble, but he had nothing left to lose. He had to know the truth. He gathered candles, an old mirror, and a photograph he'd found of the house's former residents. A young couple, their eyes filled with a haunting sadness. They were the key to this mystery. He could feel it. He performed the ritual as described in the book. His hands trembled as he placed his fingers on the planchette. The air grew heavy, the silence broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. He called out into the darkness, his voice a desperate plea. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles. The mirror in front of him turned black as ink, and then a voice. Not a whisper this time, but a bone-rattling growl that seemed to shake the very foundation of the house. The mirror shimmered, the darkness within coalescing into a grotesque parody of a human form. It was the figure from John's nightmares, but now it was real, its eyes burning with a cold, malevolent fire. "You should not have come here," the entity hissed, its voice a rasping growl that sent chills down John's spine. "This house is mine. These secrets are mine." John stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to scream, to run, but terror rooted him to the spot. He was paralyzed by fear, trapped in the entity's unwavering gaze. "Who are you?" John choked out, his voice a dry whisper. The entity's grin widened, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. "I am the darkness that lingers, the pain that refuses to die, and you, John, are my vessel." John knew he had to act. He couldn't let this entity consume him. He had to find a way to fight back, to break free from its grasp. But how could he fight something that existed beyond the realm of the living? He remembered the couple in the photograph, the sadness in their eyes, the whispers of betrayal. He had to understand their story. Their pain was the key to this puzzle. "What happened to them?" John demanded, his voice surprisingly steady. "What did you do to them?" The entity let out an ear-splitting shriek of rage, its form flickering as if struggling to maintain its grip on the physical world. "Their pain fuels me," it hissed. "Their betrayal gives me strength." John saw an opening, a flicker of vulnerability in the entity's rage. He had to exploit it. He had to use the entity's own power against it. John focused on the photograph, on the young couple's faces. He could feel their sorrow, their anger. But there was something else too. A love so profound, so deep, that it transcended even death. He understood. The entity wasn't fueled by their pain, not entirely. It was fueled by their unfinished business, by the love that bound them together, even in death. The betrayal wasn't the husband betraying the wife, as John had assumed. It was the husband betraying the entity, refusing to let it claim his beloved in death. John spoke to the entity not with fear, but with understanding. He spoke of the couple's love, of their bond. He spoke of the husband's sacrifice, his refusal to let the entity claim his wife. The entity shrieked, its form flickering violently. It writhed in agony as the truth of John's words pierced through its darkness. The house trembled, the air thick with the stench of decay and despair. And then, silence. The entity was gone. The house was still. John had won. But as he looked around the empty rooms, a chilling realization dawned on him. He was alone. More alone than he had ever been. The house was no longer filled with whispers and shadows, but with a silence that was deafening. He tried to leave, but the doors wouldn't open, the windows wouldn't budge. He was trapped. The entity may be gone, but John was now bound to the house, a prisoner of his own making. He looked at the photograph one last time. The couple smiled back, their eyes filled with a bittersweet peace. John understood. He was now a part of their story, trapped forever within the walls of the old house on Harbinger Lane. The house stood alone, dark, silent. It watched the street with empty eyes, and within its walls a new story had begun, a story of love, loss, and the terrifying price of eternal devotion.